Beneath the waves lies history's greatest untold story. Our planet's oceans are the final frontier, a vast and silent museum holding secrets that rewrite everything we know. This video will take you on a journey to 25 mysterious historical locations underwater, each a time capsule frozen in the deep. These are not just shipwrecks, but submerged cities, sunken monuments, and formations that defy simple explanation. They challenge our timelines, hint at forgotten civilizations, and record ancient confrontations with a changing climate. You will discover places where myth might be memory, and where geology and human artistry are locked in debate. Was a strange pyramid off the coast of Cuba built over 10,000 years ago, and what catastrophic event preserved an entire Chinese metropolis in perfect condition? These underwater ruins force us to ask profound questions about human resilience and loss. What does it truly mean for a civilization to disappear? One of the most visually striking and hotly debated sites lies in the clear, deep water off the western tip of Japan. Here, near the island of Yonaguni, a diver in the 1980s encountered something that seemed to belong in a fantasy novel. Rising from the seabed is a colossal collection of rock formations with sharp 90-degree angles, perfectly flat platforms, and what look like enormous staircases ascending into the blue gloom. This is the Yonaguni Monument, a place so geometrically precise it has earned the nickname Japan's Atlantis. The central question is deceptively simple. Are we looking at a breathtaking but entirely natural geological feature, or the sunken ruins of a civilization lost to time? The monument's features are what fuel the debate. There are wide, flat terraces that resemble plazas. There are straight, vertical walls that drop for meters. One prominent formation looks uncannily like a stepped pyramid. Perhaps most intriguing is a section of rock that some researchers argue bears the weathered outline of a human face, along with what could be interpreted as carved channels or symbolic markings. Geologists who argue for a natural origin point to the area's unique sandstone, which fractures along straight lines due to seismic activity. They suggest the relentless force of ocean currents over millennia could have sculpted these surprisingly regular shapes. Yet, other investigators, including some archaeologists, counter that the probability of so many right angles and stacked platforms occurring together by chance alone seems incredibly low. They point to the presence of what appear to be tool marks and the strategic placement of smaller stones that do not match the surrounding geology. The truth may lie somewhere in the middle. A compelling third theory suggests the Yonaguni Monument began as a natural rock formation, but was then intentionally modified and enhanced by ancient human hands, carved into a sacred site or a monumental meeting place. This unresolved puzzle makes it a cornerstone of underwater mystery. It challenges us to look more carefully, to question our assumptions about what is possible, and to wonder what other immense stories are written in stone waiting beneath the waves. The debate between nature and human artistry at Yonaguni leads us to a place where myth and history are deeply intertwined. In the Gulf of Cambay, off the western coast of India, lies a discovery that speaks directly to ancient stories. For centuries, Hindu texts have described a magnificent, prosperous city named Dwarka, the legendary kingdom of the deity Krishna. It was said to be a city of great splendor, with palaces made of precious metals and vast gates, until it was consumed by the sea following Krishna's departure from the world. For a long time, this was considered a beautiful allegory, a symbolic tale rather than a historical record. Then, in the late 20th century, marine archaeologists made a startling find. Under the murky waters, they identified large geometric stone structures, some appearing to be foundations, walls, and even what could be a pier or docking area. These were not random rocks. They were arranged in clear patterns, suggesting deliberate human construction. Alongside these structures, divers recovered ancient pottery, beads, and sections of wall, artifacts that had no business being on the seabed. The depth at which these items were found, under many meters of water and layers of sediment, pointed to a site of immense age. The implications sent shockwaves through historical circles. Some researchers, analyzing the sedimentation rate and the artifact style, proposed the structures could be over 9,000 years old. If true, this would place Dwarka's existence far earlier than the great Indus Valley civilization, rewriting the timeline of advanced urban culture in the Indian subcontinent. The potential validation is profound. It suggests the ancient Sanskrit texts were not merely philosophical or mythological, but could contain echoes of real, cataclysmic historical events, a memory of a lost golden age swallowed by the ocean. However, the site is shrouded in as much scientific controversy as it is in silt. The Gulf of Cambay is notorious for its powerful tidal currents and extremely low visibility, making any sustained underwater excavation exceptionally difficult and dangerous. The very sediment that helped preserve the site also obscures it, hiding its full extent and making precise dating a complex challenge. Mainstream archaeology urges caution, noting that natural geological formations can sometimes mimic human work and that artifacts could have been carried to the site by currents from elsewhere. The true age and nature of underwater Dwarka remain one of the ocean's most tantalizing puzzles. It stands as a powerful symbol of how the sea guards our most cherished stories, challenging us to discern where sacred legend ends and sunken history begins. The profound questions raised by Dwarka find a curious echo in the much shallower, sun-drenched waters of the Bahamas. Here, just off the coast of Bimini, lies one of the most accessible and visually compelling underwater mysteries on Earth. In the clear, warm shallows, a path of massive rectangular limestone blocks stretches for nearly half a mile across the sandy seabed. Known as the Bimini Road, it looks for all the world like a submerged, ancient cobblestone highway leading straight out into the open ocean. The immediate, irresistible impression is that you are looking at a piece of monumental human engineering, a road to nowhere built by a forgotten people. The central debate is stark. Are these blocks a stunning but entirely natural geological formation? Or are they the carefully placed stones of a man-made structure, perhaps a road, a ceremonial causeway, or even a harbor wall? Geologists present a compelling natural explanation. They identify the stone as beachrock, a type of sandstone that forms along coastlines when sand and shell fragments cement together with calcium carbonate. This material naturally fractures along straight lines and right angles as it forms and erodes, potentially creating the appearance of fitted blocks. They argue the Bimini Road is a perfect, if spectacular, example of this process, a natural pavement created by the patient forces of geology. Yet, for those who see human hands at work, the arrangement feels too deliberate. The blocks are notably uniform in size and shape, and they appear to be laid in a deliberate, purposeful curve. Some researchers point to stone anchors and what they believe are tool marks found in the area, suggesting maritime activity. The site's allure is magnified by its location, sitting directly in the region famously linked by philosopher Plato to the lost continent of Atlantis. For many, the Bimini Road became a tangible clue, a potential piece of that sunken world's infrastructure. Modern scientific analysis has scrutinized the block's alignment and composition. Core samples and geological mapping suggest the formation is consistent with natural beachrock processes. However, the debate is kept alive by the sheer, uncanny visual of the site. It represents a classic and enduring conflict in underwater exploration, where the human mind instinctively seeks pattern and purpose in nature's handiwork. The Bimini Road remains a powerful symbol of that tension, a place where the line between a remarkable natural wonder and a profound archaeological discovery is blurred by the shimmering light of the sea. The visual puzzles of Bimini and Yonaguni are spectacular, but they leave us wanting a clearer window into a lost world. For that, we must travel to the sun-drenched coast of southern Greece. Here, in the shallow, turquoise waters just off the shore, lies a city that offers no debate about its origins. This is Pavlopetri, and it holds a singular title, the oldest known submerged city on Earth. Dating back over 5,000 years to the Bronze Age, this is not a collection of ambiguous stones or a legendary name. This is a real, meticulously planned urban center, frozen in time beneath the sea. Archaeologists have mapped its entire layout with stunning clarity. You can swim along its original streets, laid out in a grid pattern that feels startlingly modern. You can see the foundations of homes, workshops, and public buildings arranged around quiet courtyards. You can even find the outlines of stone-cut tombs, resting places integrated into the fabric of the community. The mystery of Pavlopetri is not what it is, but what happened to it. This was a thriving Mycenaean port town, a hub of trade and daily life. So what force was powerful enough to send this entire city to the bottom of the Mediterranean? Researchers have two primary theories. The first points to the slow, relentless creep of sea level rise following the last ice age. As water gradually reclaimed the land, the city's inhabitants may have been forced to abandon their homes over generations, retreating inland as the sea lapped at their doorsteps. The second theory is far more dramatic. This region is seismically active, part of the volatile boundary between tectonic plates. A single, catastrophic earthquake could have caused the ground to liquefy or the shoreline to drop several meters in a matter of minutes, swallowing Pavlopetri in a sudden, violent event. The city's incredible preservation is what makes it an archaeological treasure beyond compare. Because it was submerged, it was never built over by later civilizations. No new roads were paved atop its ancient streets. The skeleton of the town remains exactly as it was left, offering an unparalleled, three-dimensional snapshot of Bronze Age urban life. We can see how people organized their space, where they lived, worked, and honored their predecessors. Pavlopetri is a true time capsule, a silent city that speaks volumes about the ingenuity of our ancestors and the fragile relationship between human settlements and the powerful, shifting earth. But the silent streets of Pavlopetri are not the only way water preserves the past. Sometimes it creates a scene so surreal it feels like a portal to another world. Deep within the lush jungle of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, inside a water-filled sinkhole known as a cenote, lies one of the planet's most breathtaking underwater illusions. Divers descending into Cenote Angelita are greeted by a sight that defies logic. They float through a layer of crystal-clear freshwater, looking down at what appears to be a flowing river, complete with a misty bank, submerged trees, and fallen leaves all resting on the bottom. It is a fully formed river, but it exists upside down, trapped inside a cavern. The mystery here is not one of human origin, but of nature's incredible artistry. The scientific explanation is as fascinating as the vision. What looks like a riverbed is actually a dense, cloudy layer of hydrogen sulfide gas, a chemical boundary formed by decaying organic matter. This layer acts like a liquid mirror, separating the lighter freshwater above from the heavier saltwater that has seeped in from the ocean below. The trees and leaves are not ancient artifacts, but modern debris that settled onto this toxic cloud, perfectly mimicking a forest floor. While the river itself is a natural marvel, the true historical weight of Cenote Angelita lies in its cultural context. For the ancient Maya, cenotes were far more than just water sources. They were sacred portals to the underworld, known as Xibalba, considered places of communication with the gods and the ancestors. These deep, still pools were sites of ceremonial practice, where offerings were made to appease deities and ensure the balance of the world. Archaeologists have recovered remarkable artifacts from similar cenotes, including intricately worked jade, gold ornaments, and pottery vessels. More poignantly, some sites have revealed that, in times of extreme hardship or for significant ritual purposes, These waters were also a final resting place for individuals, their remains telling silent stories of belief and tradition. So, while the underwater river is a stunning trick of chemistry and light, the cenote itself is a profound historical document. It represents a civilization's worldview, their understanding of life, cosmology, and sacrifice. Diving through its clear upper layer past the ghostly river illusion and into the dark saltwater below is a journey through both geological wonder and human belief, a descent into a place the Maya saw as the very threshold between our world and the next. From the sacred, sunlit cenotes of the Maya, we plunge into a realm of cold, absolute darkness and modern mystery. In the deep, frigid waters of the Baltic Sea, a sonar image captured in 2011 ignited a firestorm of speculation that burns to this day. A team of Swedish treasure hunters scanning the seabed for shipwrecks found something that defied all expectation. On their screen appeared a massive, almost perfectly circular object roughly 60 meters across. But it was the details that sent imagination soaring. The sonar return suggested a textured surface with straight lines and right angles, features that included what looked like a long, descending staircase and a strange, circular depression resembling a portal or a large hatch. This was the Baltic Sea Anomaly, and it looked like nothing anyone had ever seen on the ocean floor. The theories that erupted were as varied as they were intense. For many, the immediate, thrilling possibility was that this was a sunken craft of non-human origin, a classic flying saucer resting silently in the mud. Others proposed it could be a secret World War II anti-submarine device, a forgotten piece of experimental Nazi technology lost in the final days of the conflict. Geologists offered a more grounded explanation, suggesting the anomaly was likely a unique glacial deposit. During the last ice age, massive glaciers could have dragged and sculpted a large nodule of granite or other hard rock, leaving behind a formation with surprisingly geometric features. Some researchers even pointed to a much older, natural process involving methane venting or pillow basalt formations. The conflicting analyses only deepened the enigma. Sonar experts debated the image itself, noting how sonar pings can create optical illusions and shadows that the human brain interprets as familiar shapes, a process called pareidolia, like seeing a face in the clouds. Subsequent expeditions returned with more data and more confusion. Some samples retrieved from the site were said to contain metals not typical for the region, while other investigations found only commonplace glacial rock. The central problem is the environment itself. The Baltic Sea Anomaly rests at a depth of nearly 90 meters in perpetual darkness, where cold and pressure make detailed examination extraordinarily difficult and expensive. This has prevented any definitive, hands-on archaeological or geological survey. So, the Baltic Sea Anomaly remains one of the great unresolved puzzles of the deep. It is a perfect storm of ambiguous data, human psychology, and the inherent limitations of exploring a hostile, lightless world. It represents a modern myth in the making, a mystery born not from ancient texts but from the digital glow of a sonar screen. Whether a trick of geology, a relic of war, or something far stranger, it serves as a powerful reminder that our own oceans still hold the capacity to astonish and confound us with shapes in the dark. The dark, silent mystery of the Baltic Sea Anomaly could not be more different from our next location, a place of vibrant history and legendary names now lying beneath the gentle Mediterranean. Off the modern coast of Alexandria, Egypt, the sea conceals the heart of a vanished world, the royal quarter of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Here, in the murky harbor, archaeologists have mapped the sunken remains of Cleopatra's palace and the grand temple complexes that surrounded it. This was the center of power for the last pharaohs of Egypt, a dazzling island city known as Anterodos, where Cleopatra herself once walked. Its submersion was not the work of a single cataclysm but a slower, relentless process. A series of powerful earthquakes over centuries, combined with natural land subsidence, caused this portion of the coastline to simply sink beneath the waves, taking the architectural glory of an era with it. The discoveries made on this silty seabed are nothing short of spectacular. Divers have recovered colossal statues of gods and sphinxes, their features still regal despite centuries underwater. They have found enormous granite columns, intricate floor mosaics, and fragments of pottery that once graced the tables of royalty. Each artifact is a direct physical link to Cleopatra's court, a world previously known only through ancient texts and later Roman propaganda. These finds help us piece together the opulence and cultural fusion of her reign, a blend of Egyptian tradition and Hellenistic Greek influence. Yet, for all these treasures, one ultimate prize remains elusive, the final resting place of Cleopatra herself. Ancient sources suggest she and her lover, Mark Antony, were interred together in a magnificent tomb. No such structure has ever been found on land, leading some researchers to a compelling theory. Could their tomb have been part of this submerged royal district? Could it lie undiscovered, perhaps buried under deeper layers of sediment in the harbor, waiting to reveal its secrets? This tantalizing possibility fuels ongoing efforts to explore and excavate the underwater site, a painstaking process complicated by near-zero visibility and the delicate nature of the artifacts. Every careful sweep of a diver's hand through the mud could reveal another chapter of the story. The search for Cleopatra's tomb is more than a quest for treasure. It is an attempt to solve one of history's most enduring personal mysteries and to physically connect with a figure who shaped the destiny of empires. The harbor of Alexandria, therefore, is not just a museum of sunken stone. It is an active archaeological frontier, a place where each new discovery brings us closer to the woman behind the legend, waiting in the silent, dark water just beyond the modern city's shore. The search for a legendary queen leads us to another Egyptian marvel, one that was itself considered a myth until the sea gave up its secret. For centuries, the port city of Heracleion, known to the Egyptians as Thonis, was a whispered name in ancient texts. Greek historians wrote of a grand, wealthy gateway to Egypt, a place where all trade from the Aegean world had to stop and pay duties before sailing up the Nile. Then, around the 8th century, it vanished completely from the map and from memory, swallowed by the Mediterranean. Many scholars came to believe Heracleion was just a story, a fictional place born from sailors' tales. That all changed in the year 2000 when a French archaeologist, working off a tip from a local fisherman, made one of the most spectacular underwater discoveries of our time. Lying in the murky waters of Baiae Bay near the modern city of Alexandria was not just a few scattered ruins, but an entire lost metropolis preserved in a stunning state on the seabed. The scale of the finds is almost beyond comprehension. Divers have raised colossal statues of a pharaoh, a queen, and the god Hapi, each standing over 5 meters tall and weighing many tons. They have recovered intricately carved stone stelae covered in perfectly preserved hieroglyphs and Greek script, which served as ancient public decrees. The silt has yielded delicate gold coins, gleaming jewelry, and countless ritual objects, all lying exactly where they fell over 1,200 years ago. Perhaps most breathtaking are the remains of the city's great temple to the supreme god Amun-Jereb, its massive stone blocks now home to silent fish instead of chanting priests. The central mystery is what could possibly cause such a powerful, wealthy city to simply drop into the sea. Researchers point to a perfect storm of natural disasters. The city was built on the unstable clay and sediment of the Nile Delta. A major earthquake, a frequent event in the region, could have triggered a process called soil liquefaction, where the solid ground suddenly behaves like a liquid, causing buildings to tilt and sink. This catastrophic event may have been followed by a tsunami, whose giant waves would have finished the job, dragging the shattered city into the depths. Compounding this was the slow, steady rise of sea levels, which gradually reclaimed the land over subsequent centuries. The excavation of Heracleion is doing far more than just recovering beautiful artifacts. It is fundamentally rewriting history. The city's role as the mandatory customs checkpoint for all Greek trade has been confirmed by those inscribed stelae, which outline tax rules and import duties. This proves Heracleion was the crucial economic and cultural bridge between the civilization of the pharaohs and the rising world of classical Greece, a linchpin of the ancient Mediterranean economy that was completely lost to time. To walk through its underwater streets now is to witness a moment frozen in crisis, a vibrant port city captured at the instant of its sinking, offering us an unparalleled and poignant window into a world we thought was only legend. High in the thin air of the Andes, the world's highest navigable lake holds a secret beneath its frigid, sapphire surface. Lake Titicaca, straddling the border of Bolivia and Peru, has long been sacred to the indigenous peoples of the region, a place of creation myths and spiritual pilgrimage. For centuries, local legends spoke of a submerged city, a lost world called Wanaku, swallowed by the waters in a time of great flood. These stories were often considered symbolic until divers and archaeologists turned their attention to the lake's depths. What they found confirmed that the legends were rooted in tangible history. Scattered across the lakebed, sometimes in surprisingly shallow water, lie the unmistakable remains of a sophisticated pre-Incan civilization. There are extensive stone terraces that once formed agricultural fields, a long, straight roadway that seems to lead toward the horizon, and the crowning discovery, a monumental temple complex, its walls and courtyards laid out with clear ceremonial intent. This site is intimately connected to the Tiwanaku culture, a powerful society that flourished around the lake over 1,000 years ago, long before the Inca Empire rose to power. For the Tiwanaku, Lake Titicaca was not just a resource, it was the very cradle of existence, the place where the world was born and where the sun itself first emerged. The submerged temple, therefore, was likely a site of immense spiritual significance, a place to commune with the foundational forces of the cosmos. The central mystery is not what the site is, but what sequence of events placed it underwater. When was it originally constructed, and why did the people who revered it allow it to be consumed by the lake? Researchers are piecing together two compelling and possibly interconnected theories. The first draws directly from the enduring local legends of a great deluge. These stories describe a catastrophic flood, a sudden and violent rising of the waters that inundated a thriving civilization as a form of divine judgment or a natural reset. Geological evidence from around the lake does show signs of dramatic, rapid shoreline changes in the ancient past. A massive seismic event could have triggered a landslide that blocked a river outlet, causing the lake level to surge catastrophically in a very short time, perhaps within a single generation. The second theory points to a slower, more patient force. Climate data reveals that the region has experienced significant long-term fluctuations between wet and dry periods over millennia. A prolonged era of increased rainfall could have caused the lake to gradually expand its shores over centuries, slowly encroaching on the temple and farmlands. The inhabitants may have retreated step by step, watching their sacred site become an aquatic shrine, its meaning transforming as the waters rose. Modern underwater archaeology is now the key to unlocking this timeline. By meticulously mapping the structures, taking sediment cores from the lake bottom, and using advanced dating techniques on organic material found within the temple walls, scientists are beginning to distinguish between a sudden disaster and a gradual retreat. Every carved stone recovered from the silt adds a piece to the puzzle of Tiwanaku cosmology and engineering. This sunken temple, then, is more than a ruin. It is a direct challenge to our understanding of how cultures interact with a changing environment. It asks us whether the flood myths found in countless cultures worldwide might be distant memories of real geological events. The cold, clear waters of Lake Titicaca preserve not just a building, but a profound dialogue between human faith and the immense, shifting power of the natural world. Far from the high-altitude waters of Lake Titicaca, another deep and profound mystery lies hidden under the crushing pressure of the open ocean. Off the western coast of Cuba, a team of marine engineers made a discovery in 2000, and one that continues to echo through the world of alternative history. While conducting routine sonar mapping of the seafloor, their equipment returned images that were anything but routine. At a staggering depth of around 2,000 feet, the sonar revealed a series of startlingly geometric shapes spread across a vast area. The outlines appeared to show what looked like pyramids, large rectangular structures resembling buildings, and long, straight lines intersecting like a grid of city streets or plazas. The clarity and regularity of these forms stood in stark contrast to the natural, chaotic contours of the surrounding seabed. It looked for all the world like the blueprint of a sunken metropolis. This is the profound and controversial heart of the mystery. If these sonar images do indeed represent human-made structures, the implications are revolutionary. At that immense depth, the site could only have been constructed when it was dry land above sea level. The last time that area was exposed to air was during the peak of the last ice age, over 10,000 years ago, when global sea levels were hundreds of feet lower. This timeline presents an extraordinary challenge. Mainstream archaeology tells us that around 10,000 years ago, human societies in the Americas were primarily composed of small, nomadic groups of hunter-gatherers. The idea of a complex, urban civilization capable of planning and building such monumental architecture in this region simply does not fit within the established historical framework. It would suggest a lost chapter of human history, a sophisticated culture that flourished and then vanished as the melting glaciers slowly drowned its world. Yet, the mystery remains frustratingly out of reach, suspended in a realm of tantalizing speculation. The extreme depth is the primary obstacle. 2,000 feet is far beyond the reach of recreational scuba diving, requiring specialized, costly submersibles or remote-operated vehicles for any direct visual inspection. The pressure at that depth is immense, and the environment is perpetually dark and cold. Since the initial sonar discovery, there has been no major, publicly documented follow-up expedition dedicated to thoroughly investigating the site with high-resolution cameras or sampling equipment. Without physical evidence, a recovered tool, a carved stone, or a clear photograph of a wall face, the sonar images remain just that, intriguing shapes on a screen. Geologists offer a counterpoint, suggesting the formations could be the result of natural processes. Ancient beachrock, volcanic basalt formations, or even unusual fracturing of the continental shelf could, under the right conditions, produce surprisingly regular patterns that trick the human eye. The Cuban underwater city, therefore, exists in a fascinating limbo. It is a ghost on a sonar readout, a possibility that challenges our deepest assumptions about the timeline of human achievement. It asks us a difficult but thrilling question. Are we looking at the digital echo of a forgotten world, or simply one of nature's most persuasive illusions? Until someone can descend into that eternal darkness and lay a hand on its stones, it remains one of the ocean's most compelling and unresolved whispers. While the Cuban formation remains a debate in the deep, a shallower site offers undeniable proof of a world lost to rising seas. Just off the coast of modern Israel, the Mediterranean cradles a time capsule from humanity's pivotal transition. Atlit Yam is a submerged Neolithic village, a hauntingly complete settlement frozen in time over 8,000 years ago. This is not a scattering of artifacts but a preserved community. On the sandy seabed, you can still see the foundations of rectangular stone houses, their walls defining the intimate spaces where families lived. There are deep, stone-lined wells that once tapped into freshwater, now filled with salt water. And at the heart of the settlement rests a mysterious stone circle, its upright megaliths arranged with clear intention, a silent monument to the spiritual life of its builders. The village represents a snapshot of the Neolithic revolution, the moment when humans began to shift from nomadic hunting and gathering to settled farming, forging a new relationship with the land. But the most poignant and telling finds at Atlit Yam are the human remains discovered within the settlement. The presence of individuals in what appears to be a resting place rather than a dedicated area set apart suggests something profound and sudden occurred. There is no evidence of conflict or violence. Instead, the scene implies a community caught in a crisis that forced an abrupt departure, a quiet and collective leaving. The leading theory for this abandonment points to a force as immense as it is patient. Atlit Yam was constructed during the closing chapters of the last ice age. As global temperatures slowly climbed, the massive continental glaciers began to melt, releasing vast quantities of water back into the world's oceans. This process, known as glacial meltwater pulse, caused sea levels to rise at a rate that would have been perceptible across human generations. For the people of Atlit Yam, the change would have been a creeping threat. They may have watched as storm surges reached further inland each year, as salt water began to seep into their precious freshwater wells, poisoning their drinking supply and ruining the soil for their crops. The stone circle, perhaps a site for ceremonies to ensure a good harvest or to appease nature's forces, would have stood as a powerless witness to the gradual drowning of their world. The decision to leave would not have been made in a single season, but after years of mounting hardship, a slow retreat from a home that the sea was steadily reclaiming. This site provides crucial, tangible evidence of one of history's first great climate migrations. It shows us that the challenges of a changing environment are not a modern invention, but an ancient human experience. The villagers of Atlit Yam were pioneers of a new agricultural way of life, yet they were ultimately powerless against the planetary shifts set in motion long before their time. Their abandoned homes and silent stone circle offer a deeply human lesson in resilience and adaptation, a story written not in legend, but in the stones and resting places left behind on the ocean floor. The slow, generational retreat from Atlit Yam stands in stark contrast to a city whose end was not a whisper, but a scream. In the warm waters of the Caribbean Sea lies the shattered skeleton of Port Royal, Jamaica, a place that earned a fearsome reputation as the wickedest city on earth. By the late 1600s, this was the unrivaled capital of piracy in the New World, a bustling port where English privateers, buccaneers, and outright criminals operated with the unofficial blessing of the British Crown. It was a city of immense wealth and even greater lawlessness, a place where gold flowed as freely as rum, and fortunes were made overnight from plundered Spanish treasure. Then, on the morning of June 7, 1692, the ground itself rebelled. A massive earthquake, estimated to be near magnitude 7.5, struck without warning. The tremor was so violent it caused a phenomenon called liquefaction, where the sandy ground Port Royal was built upon instantly turned to a churning liquid slurry. Entire streets and brick buildings simply sank, sliding into the sea as the island's shoreline collapsed. In a matter of minutes, 2/3 of the city vanished beneath the waves, taking an estimated 2,000 individuals with it. The disaster was so sudden and complete that it created a unique archaeological gift, a moment frozen in horrific detail. Unlike sites slowly claimed by rising seas, Port Royal was captured in an instant of daily life. Underwater excavations have revealed an astonishingly preserved 17th-century world. Archaeologists have found intact brick buildings with walls still standing, wooden structures with beams and furniture in place, and a cobblestone street that simply drops off into the deep blue. The sediment has yielded thousands of artifacts that paint a vivid picture of that final day. Clay pipes still waiting to be smoked, pewter plates set for a meal, and countless bottles that once held wine and spirits. More poignantly, researchers have also uncovered resting places of individuals caught in the collapse. their remains offering silent, personal testimony to the catastrophe's human scale. The mystery of Port Royal, therefore, is not what caused its sinking, which geology clearly explains, but about the unparalleled snapshot it provides. This underwater site is a perfectly preserved time capsule of colonial Caribbean life at its most extreme. We can see the stark divide between the crude wooden taverns of the common sailor and the refined brick homes of wealthy merchants, many filled with luxurious imported goods. We can trace the global networks of trade and plunder through artifacts from Europe, Africa, China, and the Americas. Every recovered object, from a simple shoe to a surgeon's brass syringe, tells a story of ambition, violence, commerce, and fleeting human pleasure. The city's dramatic end serves as a powerful, sobering reminder of nature's absolute power over human endeavors, no matter how proud or prosperous. To explore Port Royal today is to witness a morality play written in brick and bone, a bustling pirate haven forever silenced by the sea it once ruled. The sudden, violent end of Port Royal feels worlds away from a quiet, inland lake in the American Midwest. Yet beneath the placid surface of Rock Lake in Wisconsin, a different kind of mystery has simmered for generations. Here, local stories and decades of sonar scans speak of something astonishing: sunken pyramids. For over a century, fishermen, divers, and curious residents have reported seeing large, angular stone structures resting on the murky lakebed, some describing shapes that eerily resembled pyramids with truncated tops. These are not vague legends, but persistent accounts backed by intriguing, if ambiguous, evidence. The central question is as clear as the lake is not. Are we looking at the handiwork of ancient glaciers, the ceremonial architecture of indigenous peoples, or something that challenges our understanding of North American history entirely? The investigations into Rock Lake have been as frustrating as they are fascinating. Early in the 20th century, a pioneering aviator even flew low over the water on calm days, claiming to see the distinct outlines of multiple stone structures. Later, more systematic efforts using sonar have repeatedly identified large, geometric anomalies on the bottom. These scans show what appear to be conical and pyramidal mounds made of stone, some measuring dozens of feet long and standing several feet high. On rare occasions when determined divers have braved the lake's notoriously low visibility, they have returned with descriptions of touching stacked stone walls and carefully arranged rock formations that feel undeniably deliberate. The most compelling physical evidence came with the recovery of what seems to be a man-made stone mound from the lake, its construction appearing consistent with known ancient practices. So what could these structures be? Geologists offer a straightforward explanation. The region was sculpted by glaciers, and it is possible that retreating ice sheets left behind large moraines or erratic boulders that, when viewed from certain angles in the poor light, create the illusion of built forms. The more culturally grounded theory points to the area's rich indigenous history. The shores of Rock Lake are dotted with hundreds of pre-colonial effigy mounds, earthen constructions in the shapes of animals and spirits built by Native American cultures over 1,000 years ago. Archaeologists suggest that when water levels in the lake were lower centuries ago, these peoples may have also built stone cairns or ceremonial mounds on what was then dry land. As water levels rose, whether from natural cycles or later dam construction, these sites would have been submerged, preserving them in a way land-based mounds were not. This theory respectfully ties the underwater finds to the known, profound cultural landscape of the region. Yet, for some, the scale and shape of the largest formations fuel speculation about a more distant and unknown past, a lost chapter that predates recorded history in the area. The true enigma of Rock Lake is perpetuated by its environment. The water is dark, filled with tannins from decaying vegetation, granting visibility often measured in mere inches. This makes any definitive archaeological mapping or excavation nearly impossible without vast resources and technology. This perpetual obscurity has allowed the mystery to breathe, blending sonar data with local folklore into a potent, enduring legend. It stands as a perfect example of how water doesn't just hide history, it can transform it, wrapping tangible stones in a shroud of doubt and wonder that challenges us to look deeper, even when we cannot clearly see. The murky depths of Rock Lake are not alone in guarding secrets of stone. In the vast, cold expanse of Lake Michigan, a routine scientific survey revealed a formation so unexpected it seemed to rewrite the prehistory of North America. While using side-scan sonar to map the lakebed for historic shipwrecks, researchers discovered something far older and more enigmatic. Resting under nearly 40 meters of water was a neat, circular arrangement of large stones. Each megalith appeared deliberately placed, forming a rough ring over 3,000 feet in diameter, a layout hauntingly reminiscent of smaller, land-based stone circles found across Europe and the British Isles. This underwater Stonehenge was a mystery in itself, but the true shock came with a closer look at one particular boulder within the circle. The sonar image seemed to show a distinct carved figure on its side. The outline, many experts argued, was unmistakable, a detailed depiction of a mastodon, a massive, elephant-like creature that went extinct in North America over 10,000 years ago. The implications of this single image are staggering. If the carving is genuine and human-made, it presents a profound historical puzzle. It would place artists capable of such sophisticated representation in the Great Lakes region at a time when much of the continent was still gripped by the last ice age. This timeline coincides with the existence of the Clovis people, long considered among the earliest inhabitants of the Americas, but it would suggest a level of cultural expression and possibly even ritualistic monument building not typically attributed to those early hunter-gatherer societies. The site forces a difficult question. Could this circle be a ceremonial site, an ancient calendar, or a memorial constructed by people who shared the landscape with these majestic, now vanished beasts? The discovery ignited immediate and intense debate within the archaeological community. Skeptics point to the inherent limitations of sonar technology, noting that the software often interprets random patterns of rock and shadow as familiar shapes, a process of visual suggestion. They argue that the so-called mastodon could be a purely natural formation, a fortuitous arrangement of cracks and mineral deposits that only resembles an animal to our pattern-seeking minds. The stones of the circle itself, they suggest, could be the work of ancient glaciers, which routinely transported and dropped large boulders in seemingly arranged patterns as the ice retreated. Without direct human examination, the data remains open to interpretation. This is the core of the mystery's modern challenge. The site lies in deep, dark water, making it inaccessible to all but the most specialized and well-funded diving operations. The cold and the depth preserve the site but also hide it from easy verification. What is urgently needed and what has not yet happened is a dedicated archaeological dive to physically inspect the stones, to feel for tool marks, to take precise measurements, and to photograph the mastodon boulder with high-definition cameras. Until a human hand touches those submerged megaliths, the Lake Michigan Circle remains a compelling ghost in the sonar data. It represents the thrilling, frustrating frontier of underwater discovery, where a single digital image can propose a history-shaking idea, yet the ancient, silent lake holds the definitive answer just out of reach. Sometimes the sea does not claim a city, but is instead invited in. Deep within the placid, emerald waters of Qingdao Lake in China lies a marvel of a very different kind, a place not lost to catastrophe, but carefully, deliberately sacrificed. This is the sunken city of Shi Cheng, the Lion City, and its story is one of modern necessity meeting ancient grandeur. Founded over 1,300 years ago, Shi Cheng was once a thriving center of politics and culture, its streets and temples a testament to the architectural brilliance of the Ming and Qing dynasties. Then, in 1959, the Chinese government made a decision to harness the power of water for a growing nation. A massive new hydroelectric dam was constructed, and the valley containing Shi Cheng was chosen to become a reservoir. The waters rose slowly and methodically, flooding the city not in a rage but with a quiet, deliberate finality. Families were relocated, treasures were moved, and the gates of the Lion City were closed for the last time as it was given to the lake. The profound mystery of Shi Cheng is not about its origins or its demise, both of which are well documented in modern history. Its wonder lies in its astonishing, almost perfect preservation. While wind, sun, and pollution have worn away at ancient structures on the surface for centuries, the water of Qingdao Lake acted as a perfect protector. It created a silent, dark, and temperature-stable environment that halted time. The very force that submerged the city also became its guardian, shielding exquisite stone carvings of lions, dragons, and phoenixes that adorn archways and temples. Intricately detailed reliefs on memorial arches, which would have faded to dust in the open air, remain as sharp as the day they were carved. Grand halls with their traditional wooden beams, though now home to fish, stand intact. The water preserved the city not as a ruin, but as a museum exhibit suspended in liquid amber, a complete snapshot of imperial Chinese urban design frozen in the mid-20th century. This intentional drowning has given us a gift unparalleled in archaeology, a 500-year-old time capsule sealed in 1959. Exploring Shi Cheng today is like swimming through a dream of imperial China. Divers glide over ornate city walls, through wide ceremonial gates, and along silent streets that still trace the old grid. They can hover before the majestic remains of the city's Confucian temple, a place of scholarship and reverence, and admire the stonework of stately homes built around courtyards. The level of detail is breathtaking, from the waves and clouds carved into stone screens to the characters inscribed on monuments, all perfectly legible. Modern efforts to understand this sunken marvel have employed advanced sonar mapping and underwater photography, creating three-dimensional digital models that allow historians and the public to tour the city without getting wet. These maps reveal the city's sophisticated layout and infrastructure, offering new insights into the engineering and aesthetic principles of its era. Shi Cheng presents a poignant and powerful duality. It is a monument to both cultural memory and modern progress, a place where history was not destroyed, but purposefully archived in a most unexpected way. Its silent streets speak to the difficult choices societies make, trading one treasure for another in the belief it will serve the future. The water that covers it asks us to consider what we preserve and what we change, and how sometimes in the act of creation, we must also practice a form of respectful letting go. The Lion City does not haunt the deep like a ghost, but rests there as a guardian of beauty, reminding us that sometimes the past is not lost, but waiting perfectly still in the clear, deep quiet below. The intentional preservation of Shi Cheng is a modern story, but our planet's waters hold far older memories of entire worlds erased. Beneath the churning grey waves of the North Sea lies a ghost continent, a place that fundamentally shaped the human story of Europe. This was Doggerland, a vast and fertile lowland plain that, for thousands of years, formed a continuous land bridge connecting what is now Great Britain to the coasts of the Netherlands, Germany, and Denmark. It was not a narrow isthmus, but a sprawling, rich territory larger than many modern countries, a verdant landscape of rolling hills, forests, rivers, and marshes teeming with life. For the small, mobile groups of Mesolithic hunter-gatherers who lived there, it was a bountiful paradise, a continent in its own right. Then, as the great glaciers of the last ice age continued their long retreat, the seas began their inexorable rise. The story of Doggerland is not one of a single city drowning, but of an entire world slowly, irrevocably vanishing beneath the waves, a process that took centuries but would have been starkly visible within a human lifetime. The mystery of this lost land is not found in grand stone temples, but in the subtle, haunting clues painstakingly gathered from the seafloor. For generations, North Sea fishermen have dragged up strange, ancient objects in their nets far from any shore. Finely worked flint tools, the bones of mammoths and aurochs, and even fragments of human-crafted bone points. These were the first whispers of Doggerland. Modern science has given those whispers a voice. Advanced seismic surveys, originally used for oil and gas exploration, have mapped the drowned landscape in astonishing detail. The scans reveal the sunken contours of ancient river valleys like the Rhine and Thames, which once met and flowed north across the plain. They show the outlines of vast lakes and the ghostly impressions of what were once rolling hills. Perhaps most poignant are the discoveries of ancient, preserved peat beds and the rooted stumps of entire forests, standing silently on the seabed where they grew over 8,000 years ago. These submerged woodlands are the drowned bones of the land itself. Piecing together this evidence, archaeologists understand that Doggerland was not an empty corridor, but a densely populated heartland. Communities followed the migrating herds of reindeer and wild horse, fished in the rich rivers, and gathered resources from the forests. The sudden loss of this entire territory, consumed by the rising water, would have had a seismic impact on human migration and culture. As the land shrunk, populations were squeezed, forced to retreat toward the higher ground that would become the islands and coastlines we know today. This great displacement likely intensified competition for resources, spurred new social organizations, and fundamentally redirected the flow of people, ideas, and technologies across northwestern Europe. The drowning of Doggerland was a slow-motion event of continental consequence, reshaping the very map of human habitation. Every stone tool dredged from the mud, every scan of a lost river channel, tells a story of adaptation and profound change. It reminds us that the familiar geography of our world is temporary, and that the seafloor is not just a graveyard for ships, but the archive of a vanished homeland, its ancient forest still dreaming in the dark. The slow drowning of a continent like Doggerland speaks to the power of water as a sculptor of human destiny, a force that can erase entire worlds from memory. Yet sometimes the sea offers a fleeting glimpse of what it has taken, as if sharing a secret in a moment of upheaval. On the sun-washed coast of Tamil Nadu, India, a local legend persisted for over 1,000 years, whispered from generation to generation. It spoke of the 7 pagodas of Mahabalipuram, a group of magnificent shore temples built by the Pallava dynasty. According to the tale, 6 of these glorious structures were punished by the gods for their pride and swallowed by the sea in a single night of wrath, leaving only the single, beautiful shore temple we see today. For centuries, this story was considered a poetic metaphor, a way to explain the grandeur of the remaining temple complex. Then, in December 2004, the ocean itself decided to reveal the truth. The catastrophic Indian Ocean tsunami that devastated coastlines across the region struck Mahabalipuram with terrifying force. As the colossal wave receded, pulling billions of gallons of water back into the sea, it performed an act of unintended archaeology. The powerful backwash scoured away centuries of sand and sediment from the seabed just offshore. When the waters finally calmed, local fishermen stared in astonishment. Lying exposed in the suddenly clear shallows were the distinct outlines of man-made structures. There were large, rectangular stone blocks, the remains of a massive boundary wall, and the foundation of what appeared to be a temple complex, all arranged in a deliberate layout. The tsunami's terrible violence had, for a brief moment, corroborated an ancient folk tale. The discovery triggered formal underwater archaeological investigations which confirmed the incredible find. Divers mapped extensive submerged ruins, including a large, collapsed temple structure with stone pillars and plinths, scattered pottery shards, and more sections of that giant wall, suggesting a substantial settlement that extended from the shore out into the water. The mystery now shifted from whether the legend was true to understanding the full scale of what was lost. How large was this submerged port city? Was it a single ceremonial complex or part of a sprawling urban center that served the Pallava kings, who were renowned as master builders and seafarers? The onshore monuments at Mahabalipuram are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, celebrated for their exquisite rock-cut architecture and stone sculptures depicting Hindu mythology. The underwater ruins suggest these shoreside masterpieces were not isolated, but perhaps the grand entrance to a much larger maritime capital. This paints a new picture of the Pallava dynasty's reach, indicating they possessed advanced harbor engineering and a thriving coastal trade network that connected them across the Indian Ocean. The sea at Mahabalipuram thus holds a dual legacy. It is the keeper of a forgotten city, but also the force that, in a tragic paradox, briefly uncovered it. The event reminds us that folklore is often a vessel for historical truth, a compressed memory of real events passed down through ages. The 6 lost pagodas may not be literal towers standing intact beneath the waves, but their stone foundations are real, waiting just below the surface, affirming that the stories our ancestors told were sometimes their way of remembering a world that the sea slowly, patiently reclaimed. The ancient shores of Lake Constance hold a different kind of secret, one built not of temples or cities, but of countless stones patiently piled by human hands. Scattered across the lakebed near its southwestern shores, archaeologists have discovered hundreds of mysterious stone mounds known as cairns resting in the quiet dark. These are not random accumulations. Each cairn is a deliberate construction, a neat, conical pile of rounded lake stones, some reaching several meters in diameter and standing over a meter high. They date back to the Neolithic period, over 5,000 years ago, a time when the first farmers were settling across Europe. The enigma of these underwater cairns lies not in their existence but in their silent purpose. Why would a society expend such immense effort to build these structures in the water? Researchers have proposed several compelling theories, each offering a window into the mindset of these ancient lake dwellers. One possibility is that the cairns served as memorial sites, resting places for individuals or markers of significant events, their location in the water perhaps symbolizing a spiritual transition or connection to other realms. Another idea suggests they functioned as territorial markers, clearly delineating fishing grounds, clan boundaries, or safe navigation channels in the vast lake. Perhaps the most practical theory posits that these stone piles were the sturdy foundations for wooden platforms or dwellings built on stilts, creating stable living spaces above the waterline in a community that lived in harmony with the lake. The true challenge for modern investigators is the fundamental shift in the landscape. We are interpreting structures built for a lakeshore environment that no longer exists. The water level of Lake Constance has fluctuated dramatically over millennia due to climatic shifts and geological activity. What was once a shallow shoreline or a damp marshland, where these cairns would have stood at the water's edge or just beneath its surface, is now deep underwater. This makes it incredibly difficult to reconstruct their original context or understand how they related to the daily life of the people who built them. Were they approached by canoe? Did they sit within reed beds? Were they visible warnings or sacred sites only accessed during ceremonies? Their submerged state obscures these vital clues. Yet, their very presence speaks volumes about the sophistication of the Neolithic societies around Lake Constance. Building hundreds of these cairns required coordinated labor, communal planning, and a deep understanding of materials. It indicates a society that was not merely surviving by the lake, but actively engineering its environment, adapting their architecture to the rhythms of rising and falling waters. These stone piles are monuments to adaptation, a physical testament to a people who saw the lake not as a barrier, but as a central element of their world to be navigated, utilized, and inscribed with meaning. Each cairn is a question mark in stone, a silent message from a time when the shoreline was in a different place, waiting for us to learn its language. The patient stone cairns of Lake Constance speak of a society in harmony with water, but history also records moments where the sea became an instrument of decisive, terrifying change. In the late 13th century, off the coast of Takashima Island, Japan, the ocean delivered two of the most consequential storms in recorded history. The mighty Mongol Empire under Kublai Khan, grandson of Genghis, had conquered much of the known world from China to the edges of Europe. His gaze then turned to Japan. In 1274 and again in 1281, he launched the largest naval invasion forces the world had ever seen, a combined armada of nearly 4,000 ships carrying over 100,000 soldiers. Their goal was nothing less than the subjugation of the Japanese islands, yet both times this seemingly unstoppable force met a sudden, catastrophic end not from samurai blades, but from the fury of the sky and sea. Violent typhoons, which the Japanese would later call kamikaze or divine wind, tore into the Mongol fleets as they lay at anchor or attempted to land. The storms were so immense they shattered the invasion vessels, drowning the vast majority of the troops and scattering their wreckage across the seabed. This event was not just a military defeat, it was a cultural turning point that cemented a national myth of divine protection for Japan and halted Mongol expansion in East Asia. For centuries, the kamikaze existed in historical texts and folk memory, a story almost too dramatic to be true. Then, underwater archaeologists began to explore the muddy waters around Takashima. What they found was a submerged battlefield of staggering scale, confirming the ancient chronicles in vivid physical detail. The seafloor is littered with the tangible evidence of the shattered fleet. Divers have recovered hundreds of heavy stone anchors, each weighing over 100 kilograms, designed to hold the massive Chinese and Korean warships. They have found iron swords, ceramic grenades filled with gunpowder, bronze Buddhist statues carried for spiritual protection, and countless fragments of the ships themselves. The sheer density of artifacts paints a picture of a crowded anchorage suddenly thrown into chaos. One of the most poignant discoveries has been the remains of a complete ship's hull, its timbers preserved in the silt, offering a direct blueprint of Kublai Khan's naval technology. The central mystery that lingers for scientists is not whether the storms happened, but understanding their precise, devastating mechanics. What combination of wind, wave, and tide could obliterate a navy of that size? Modern meteorologists and oceanographers study sediment cores from the area, looking for layers of debris and geological signatures of ancient mega-storms. They theorize that the Mongol fleets, comprised of different ship types from various conquered regions, may have been particularly vulnerable. The larger, heavier Chinese vessels might have fared poorly in the shallow, rocky bays during a surge, while the lighter Korean ships could have been simply overwhelmed by the waves. The archaeology adds a human dimension to the climate data. The distribution of wreckage suggests many ships were dashed against each other or the shore, leaving little chance for escape. Every anchor raised from the mud is a point on a map of disaster, helping to chart the storm's paths and intensities. This underwater site is therefore a unique historical laboratory. It merges military history, naval archaeology, and paleotempestology, the study of past storms. Each artifact pulled from the silt moves the story from legend into the realm of verified historical event, detailing a pivotal moment where nature intervened to alter the course of nations. The sunken fleet of Kublai Khan rests as a solemn testament to the limits of human ambition, a reminder that the greatest armies can be scattered by the timeless, untamed power of the wind and sea. The kamikaze storms that shattered Kublai Khan's fleet demonstrate the sea's raw power, but in the stillness of an inland cave, water holds a different kind of authority. Across the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, a hidden world of profound silence and darkness stretches for hundreds of miles beneath the jungle floor. This is the vast, interconnected network of flooded cenotes and underwater cave systems, a subterranean labyrinth of breathtaking beauty and deep historical gravity. For the ancient Maya, these were not just geological features, they were the sacred arteries of their world, portals to the watery underworld of Xibalba, and vital sources of life giving freshwater in a land with few surface rivers. The mystery locked within these crystal-clear, yet perilously dark waters, is written in the countless archaeological remains resting on the cave floors. Explorers navigating these silent corridors have discovered pristine collections of Maya pottery, often placed in deliberate arrangements. They have found intricate jewelry made of jade and shell, objects of great personal and ceremonial value. More poignantly, these underwater caves also hold the ancient remains of individuals resting in the perpetual quiet. For researchers, each of these discoveries presents a complex puzzle of interpretation. Were these items lost by accident or carefully placed as ritual offerings to the gods of the underworld? Could some of these sites represent memorial spaces where community members were laid to rest in a place of deep spiritual significance? The positioning of many artifacts, often far from any natural entrance in areas of total darkness, suggests these journeys into the deep earth were intentional acts undertaken for reasons central to Maya belief. They may have been pleas for rain during drought, attempts to communicate with ancestors, or acts of devotion to deities who controlled the cycles of life and the precious water itself. Understanding this context transforms a simple artifact into a key, helping us decipher how the Maya viewed the cosmos, where the realms of the living, the divine, and the departed intersected in the physical landscape. Unlocking these mysteries, however, comes with extraordinary danger. Exploring these systems is one of the most technically demanding and hazardous endeavors on Earth. Divers must navigate through passages sometimes narrower than their shoulders, in absolute darkness, with silt so fine that a single misplaced fin kick can reduce visibility to zero in an instant. The labyrinths are so complex that even with guidelines, disorientation is a constant threat. Beyond the physical risks, there is the psychological weight of the environment, the awareness that you're moving through a space that was, for the Maya, both deeply sacred and profoundly feared. Modern cave divers are not just adventurers, they are underwater archaeologists working with extreme precision, documenting sites without disturbing the delicate sediment that has preserved them for over 1,000 years. Their slow, careful work illuminates a civilization's relationship with a challenging environment, showing how the Maya turned geographical necessity into spiritual architecture. Every untouched pot, every piece of jade resting on a limestone shelf, is a message from a people who looked into the dark water and saw not emptiness but a sacred, living depth. While the Maya ventured into sacred darkness, the Roman elite sought a different kind of watery escape, one of radiant light and scandalous luxury. On the sun-drenched coast of the Bay of Naples, the ancient city of Baiae was the ultimate playground for the powerful and wealthy of the Roman Empire. Senators, emperors, and poets flocked to its shores, drawn by therapeutic thermal springs and a reputation for breathtaking beauty and unrestrained indulgence. This was a place of magnificent villas, elaborate bath complexes, and gardens that cascaded down to the sea, a symbol of Rome at its most opulent and sophisticated. Yet today, a significant portion of this legendary resort does not stand on land, but rests silently beneath the gentle waves of the Mediterranean. The force that transformed Baiae was not a sudden earthquake or a rising flood, but a far slower, more insistent geological sigh. The entire region sits atop the volatile Phlegrean Fields, a vast supervolcano. This activity causes a phenomenon known as bradyseism, a gradual rising and falling of the land itself. Over centuries, this slow-motion pulsation has caused sections of the coastline to sink, millimeter by millimeter, until seawater claimed the city's most prized waterfront neighborhoods. The result is an underwater archaeological park of unparalleled clarity and preservation. Snorkelers and divers can now glide over the same streets where Roman aristocrats once strolled. They can hover above the intricate mosaic floors of dining rooms, their colorful tesserae still depicting scenes of mythology and daily life. They can swim through the sunken courtyards of vast villas, where marble columns now provide habitats for fish, and peer into rooms where statues of gods and emperors stand guard in the blue twilight. One of the most striking sights is a section of paved road that vanishes into the deep, flanked by the crumbled walls of shops and homes, a literal path into the drowned past. The central mystery of Baiae, therefore, is not a question of catastrophic loss, but of incredible survival. The sea did not violently destroy this city, it gently enveloped it. This slow submersion, combined with the protective blanket of sand and sediment, acted as a perfect preservative. Structures that would have been quarried for stone or eroded by the elements on land were frozen in time. The underwater site offers a three-dimensional blueprint of Roman luxury and engineering that land-based ruins often lack. We can see the sophisticated network of pipes that fed the famous baths with hot spring water, understand the ingenious design of seaside villas built to capture cool breezes and stunning views, and appreciate the artistry of floor mosaics that have never been worn by foot traffic. Baiae provides a uniquely intimate and undisturbed snapshot of leisure at the highest levels of an ancient superpower. It reveals the aesthetic tastes, the architectural brilliance, and the sheer scale of wealth that defined the Roman elite. To explore it is to float through a world of vanished extravagance, where the silence of the sea has replaced the sounds of gossip, poetry, and revelry, preserving a moment of gilded life exactly as the slow, patient earth let it sink beneath the waves. On a remote island in the Pacific Ocean, a city of stone rises from the water, defying both logic and the relentless sea. This is Nan Madol, a sprawling ceremonial complex built not on solid ground, but atop a coral reef along the eastern shore of Pohnpei. For centuries, it has been called the Venice of the Pacific, a labyrinth of over 90 artificial islets separated by a network of tidal canals. These waterways, filled with the rhythmic pulse of the ocean, are not mere accidents of geography. They form a deliberate, liquid grid that integrated the city with the surrounding sea, suggesting its builders saw water not as a barrier, but as a fundamental part of its design and defense. The canals served as transportation routes for ceremonial canoes, controlled access to different precincts, and may have held spiritual significance, mirroring the celestial patterns important to the island's Sordilor dynasty. Yet this intimate relationship with water also spelled the city's vulnerability, as rising sea levels and storm surges now threaten to reclaim the stones that have stood for nearly a millennium. The sheer physical reality of Nan Madol is its greatest mystery. The entire complex is constructed from colossal basalt logs, each one a prismatic column weighing many tons. These stones were quarried from the opposite side of the island, yet no one knows how they were transported across miles of jungle and open water to this remote reef. The local oral tradition offers a solution as enigmatic as the problem itself. The legends say the great stones were not dragged or rolled, but were magically levitated into place through the power of a twin sorcery. Two brothers, Olasipa and Olasopa, who are said to have founded the dynasty, commanded the stones to fly through the air, assembling the city's walls and platforms with supernatural ease. While modern minds may dismiss this as myth, the legend underscores the profound impossibility that the original islanders faced and conquered. Even with our contemporary understanding of physics and engineering, the logistics of moving an estimated 750,000 tons of basalt without metal tools, wheels, or draft animals remain almost incomprehensible. This leads to the central, haunting question of Nan Madol. Why go to such extraordinary, back-breaking effort to build a ceremonial and political capital in such an improbable and challenging location? Constructing on a coral reef offered no natural freshwater source and poor soil for agriculture, meaning all sustenance and resources had to be brought in by boat. Some researchers theorize the site was chosen precisely for its isolation and defensibility, a place where the ruling elite could separate themselves from the common population and control access absolutely. Others suggest the reef location was deeply tied to the spiritual cosmology of the people, a sacred space between the land and the deep ocean, a place to commune with deities of the sea. The very vulnerability to the ocean that we see today may have been part of its original power, a constant, dramatic reminder of the forces the rulers claimed to mediate. Whatever the reason, the choice ultimately contributed to the city's abandonment long before European contact, as the social order collapsed and the immense effort to maintain the water-bound city became unsustainable. Today, as sea levels rise, Nan Madol stands as a monument to both breathtaking human ambition and poignant fragility, a stone puzzle on a sinking reef, its silent canals still echoing with the splash of a paddle and the whisper of an unsolved legend. Far from the tropical canals of Nan Madol, a different kind of waterborne empire once thrived in the cold, misty inlets of northern Europe. At the head of the Schlei Inlet in modern Germany, the silt and dark water conceal the bones of a powerhouse. This was Hedeby, arguably the greatest Viking trading town of its age, a bustling, cosmopolitan port that connected the Baltic and North Seas. For centuries, its precise location and full glory were known only from sagas and fragmented historical accounts, until archaeologists looked beneath the water's surface. There, preserved in the anaerobic mud, they found Hedeby's true heart, its entire waterfront district perfectly intact on the seabed. This was not a city claimed by a sudden cataclysm, but one that slowly sank into the shallow inlet it depended on, leaving behind a time capsule of the Viking commercial world. The underwater discoveries at Hedeby are nothing short of spectacular, painting a vivid picture of a thriving maritime hub. The most striking finds are the shipwrecks. Several Viking vessels, including the famous Hedeby longship, rest where they were moored or sank centuries ago. These are not just hulls, but fully realized trading ships and warships, their elegant clinker-built construction revealing the sophisticated naval architecture that allowed the Norse to dominate sea lanes. Surrounding these ships are the physical remains of the port itself. Divers have mapped a complex network of wooden jetties and piers extending far out into the water, showing how the town maximized its berthing space for countless merchant vessels. Along these sunken walkways, the mud has yielded a treasure trove of everyday commerce. There are wooden barrels that once held fish, grain, and beer, fragments of fine glass drinking horns from the Rhineland, intricate jewelry from the East, and countless tools and personal items lost overboard in the daily hustle of the port. Each artifact is a data point in a vast economic network, proving Hedeby was not a remote outpost, but a crucial node where furs from Scandinavia, silver from the Islamic world, Frankish swords, and Slavic amber all changed hands. The central mystery for researchers now is not what Hedeby was, but piecing together the complete, dynamic layout of this submerged port and understanding the sequence of its decline. The underwater site provides a frozen moment, but interpreting it requires detective work. How were the docks organized? Where were the warehouses, the markets, the shipyards? The distribution of finds helps map these activities, showing zones for ship repair, areas for bulk goods, and spots where luxury items were handled. This allows historians to reconstruct the daily rhythm of a Viking trading metropolis with unprecedented clarity. The question of its end is equally compelling. Historical records indicate Hedeby was sacked and burned in the 11th century, but the water tells a more complex story. The submersion appears to be a gradual process, likely caused by a combination of rising water levels in the inlet and the natural sinking of the waterlogged wooden structures and land fill upon which the town was built. It is a story of slow environmental change meeting human conflict. After the attack, the town's importance waned, and as the waterfront slowly vanished beneath the rising water, there was no concerted effort to rebuild it. The sea that had been its source of wealth ultimately became its shroud, sealing the port in a protective layer of sediment. This sunken harbor offers the most direct physical link we have to the practical, mercantile reality of the Viking world, beyond the legends of raids and exploration. Hedeby was where the Norse economy came to life, a place of negotiation, craftsmanship, and cultural exchange. The preserved timbers of its jetties and ships let us touch the very infrastructure of an age of sails and saga. To study this underwater site is to witness the quiet, diligent work of empire building, where wealth was measured in traded goods and the reach of a well-built ship, all now resting in the silent, dark waters of the Schlei, waiting to chart the forgotten maps of commerce. These immense, silent jaws rest not on a windswept plain, but on the seabed of the Gulf of Thailand. Discovered by divers exploring the underwater landscape, these man-made stone vessels present a mystery that has traveled from land to sea. They bear a striking resemblance to the famous, enigmatic jars found scattered across the plain of Jaws in Laos. Thousands of stone urns of varying sizes whose original purpose has puzzled archaeologists for decades. Now, the discovery of similar objects on the ocean floor deepens the puzzle exponentially, extending a terrestrial enigma into a maritime context. The core questions are immediate and compelling. How did these heavy, carefully carved stone jars find their way to the bottom of the Gulf? And what does their presence there tell us about the people who made them? One leading theory suggests a profound shift in geography over vast stretches of time. During the last ice age, when sea levels were significantly lower, the area that is now the floor of the Gulf of Thailand was dry, exposed land. It is possible that a culture, perhaps related to or contemporaneous with the jar makers of Laos, lived and practiced their traditions in this now submerged region. They could have carved and placed their jars on what was then a terrestrial plain, only for the rising post-ice age seas to slowly, silently claim the entire landscape, leaving the jars as lonely sentinels on a new aquatic plain. This would mean the underwater jars are not out of place at all, but are exactly where their makers left them, holding their secrets beneath a different kind of sky. This theory connects directly to the primary mystery surrounding the jar's purpose. On land in Laos, the leading hypothesis is that the jars served a funerary or memorial function, perhaps as vessels for the remains of individuals or as monuments marking significant resting places. The underwater discovery could support this idea, suggesting the practice was widespread across a connected cultural region that stretched further than previously believed, a region now divided by the sea. However, the maritime location introduces other fascinating possibilities. Could the jars have been transported and deliberately deposited in the water for a specific ritual purpose? Some researchers speculate they might have been used as buoyant markers for maritime navigation, as anchors for fishing nets, or even as storage containers for goods on trading vessels that ultimately sank. The weight and craftsmanship of the jars make some of these practical uses seem unlikely, pointing back toward a ceremonial explanation. Perhaps they were offerings to sea deities, placed carefully in the coastal waters as acts of devotion or petitions for safe passage. The very act of moving such heavy objects into the sea would have been a significant communal effort, underscoring the importance of the ritual. The true challenge for archaeologists is the environment itself. Studying these submerged jars is far more difficult than examining their counterparts on land. The water obscures their full context, and the shifting sands of the seafloor can bury and reveal them over time, complicating efforts to understand their original arrangement or relationship to each other. Detailed underwater mapping and excavation are required to see if the jars are isolated or part of a larger, submerged site, perhaps with other artifacts or features that could reveal their story. This discovery does more than just add a new location to a map. It fundamentally expands the scope of the mystery. It asks us to reconsider the landscape of ancient Southeast Asia, not as the fixed coastline we see today, but as a dynamic, changing world where cultural practices may have spanned what are now separate realms of land and sea. The underwater stone jars of the Gulf of Thailand are a silent bridge between two worlds, challenging us to look beneath the waves to understand the full reach of a forgotten people's customs. They remind us that some mysteries are not confined to the earth, but sink with it, waiting in the blue quiet to be read. A single, immense stone rests on the floor of the Mediterranean, a sentinel from a world that no longer exists. Discovered in the Sicilian Channel, the stretch of sea between Sicily and Tunisia, this monolith is a staggering 12 meters long, roughly the length of a city bus. It is not a random boulder. The stone bears the unmistakable marks of human hands, with 3 regular, cylindrical holes drilled through its body at precise intervals, clear evidence of deliberate shaping and purpose. This object did not fall from a ship or tumble from a cliff. It was crafted, and it was meant to stand. The profound mystery begins with its location, for it now lies under 40 meters of seawater on a submerged plateau. Geological mapping reveals that during the last ice age, when sea levels were over 100 meters lower, this plateau was not underwater. It was a small, rocky island in a narrow strait between 2 larger landmasses, a strategic and likely resource-rich point in the ancient Mediterranean. This monolith did not sink, the sea rose to meet it. It was placed there over 9,000 years ago when the spot was dry land, by a people we are only beginning to understand. The implications of this lonely stone are monumental. It tells us that during the Mesolithic period, an era often depicted as one of simple, mobile hunter-gatherers, communities in this region possessed the advanced knowledge and coordinated labor to quarry, transport, and erect massive stone structures. This was not a small marker, but a piece of what must have been a larger complex, perhaps a navigational lighthouse, a ceremonial site, or the foundation of an early watchtower guarding the vital channel between what are now Sicily and Africa. The 3 holes are particularly telling. Researchers suggest they could have served as mooring points for ropes to help raise the monolith into a vertical position, or perhaps to secure it to other stones in a larger assembly. Their precise engineering indicates a sophisticated understanding of stone working long before the advent of metal tools. This single artifact forces a dramatic rethinking of early Mediterranean seafaring. To transport such a weight, even across the shorter Ice Age distances, required sturdy, reliable watercraft capable of handling heavy loads. It suggests these people were not just coastal paddlers, but capable mariners who understood currents, tides, and the value of controlling a maritime crossroads. The monolith stands as a lonely clue to a lost chapter of human ambition, a piece of a puzzle whose full picture remains drowned. It whispers of a time when an island culture looked out across the narrow sea, saw its importance, and raised stones to claim it, never imagining their work would one day become a message in a bottle, resting silently on the seabed for a future world to discover. From the lonely monolith in the Sicilian Channel to the sprawling grid of Nan Madol, these 25 locations form a collective whisper from the deep. They are not isolated curiosities, but pieces of a single, sprawling puzzle about our past. Stepping back, clear patterns emerge from the blue, revealing how humanity's story has been shaped and sometimes erased by the water that covers most of our planet. The first great pattern is the cause of their sinking, a division between the patient and the violent. On one side are the sites claimed by gradual, relentless sea level rise, the slow creep of water that reshaped continents. Doggerland, Atlit Yam, and the coastal plains that once connected landmasses were lost over centuries, their inhabitants forced into a generational retreat from a changing shoreline. This was climate change on a geological scale, a force no society could fight, only flee. On the other side are the victims of sudden catastrophe, places frozen in a single moment of crisis. Port Royal, Heracleion, and the settlements around Lake Titicaca were likely shattered by earthquakes, tsunamis, or massive landslides, their daily lives captured in an instant of collapse. These events remind us that the Earth's crust is a dynamic, often unstable foundation for human ambition. Many sites, however, exist in a gray area between these two forces, where a sudden disaster may have been the final blow to a place already struggling with a slowly rising sea, a 1-2 punch from a volatile planet. These patterns force us to confront recurring, profound questions. What do these sunken ruins tell us about ancient climate change and human adaptation? Sites like Atlit Yam and the submerged forests of Doggerland are not just archaeological finds, they are climate data. They provide tangible evidence of how our ancestors responded to environmental shifts that were beyond their control. We see adaptation in the raised homes of Nan Madol and the canal cities of antiquity, ingenious attempts to live with the water. But we also see the limits of that ingenuity, the ultimate retreat when the ocean's advance could no longer be engineered away. This historical record is a sobering lesson in resilience and vulnerability, showing that the challenge of a changing environment is a deeply human story, written in stone on the seafloor. Woven through nearly every discovery is a second, persistent controversy, the debate between natural geology and human artistry. From the geometric perfection of Yonaguni to the jarring lines of the Bimini Road, our minds instinctively seek the handiwork of a builder. This tension is at the heart of underwater exploration. Is that a pyramid or a glacial erratic, a carved face or a trick of erosion? This debate is more than academic. It speaks to our deep desire to find our predecessors in the landscape, to see our own capacity for creation reflected in the ancient world. It challenges scientists to prove intent, to distinguish the signal of human activity from the incredible noise of natural processes. And when evidence is ambiguous, as with the Baltic Sea Anomaly or the Lake Michigan Circle, the mystery thrives in that space between what we can prove and what we feel we are seeing. Perhaps the most disruptive pattern is the challenge to our timelines. Sites like the potential city off Cuba or the 9,000-year-old monolith in the Mediterranean propose a narrative that does not fit within the conventional framework of human history. They ask if we have underestimated the maritime capabilities and architectural ambitions of very ancient peoples. Could there have been sophisticated coastal societies that flourished at the end of the last ice age, only to have their accomplishments washed away by the rising tides, leaving behind only the deepest, most enigmatic clues? These are not questions with easy answers, but they are essential ones. They push archaeology to look deeper, literally and figuratively, and remind us that history is not a fixed story, but a manuscript where new pages are constantly being found, often soaked with seawater. Ultimately, these 25 locations connect into a broader narrative about humanity's enduring, complex relationship with the ocean. The sea has been our highway, our larder, and our graveyard. It has given rise to great port cities and trading empires like Hedeby and Heracleion, and it has taken them back through quake or tide. It has been a sacred realm, as seen in the cenotes of the Maya and the ceremonial canals of Nan Madol, a place of ritual and communication with the divine. Our ancestors lived with the ocean's rhythm, its bounty and its threat, in a way that many of us have now forgotten. These submerged ruins are their legacy, a reminder written in drowned stone. They tell us that coastlines are transient, that civilizations are fragile, and that the ocean is the keeper of our deepest past. It does not merely hide history, it is history's most patient and powerful scribe, preserving in its silent, dark vaults the stories of who we were and the enduring mysteries of how we came to be. The silent stories written across the seafloor are a testament to a simple, profound truth. Our world's oceans are not just vast bodies of water, but the single greatest museum on our planet, a liquid archive holding countless secrets that continually reshape our understanding of who we are and where we came from. These 25 mysterious locations are more than a list of curiosities. They are evidence. They are evidence of civilizations that thrived and then vanished, of forgotten disasters that redirected the flow of history, and of a timeless human ingenuity that sought to build, adapt, and make meaning even at the very edge of the rising tide. From the drowned homesteads of Doggerland to the ceremonial canals of Nan Madol, each site is a chapter in a global story of resilience and loss, a narrative told not in ink but in submerged stone. What makes this underwater museum so powerful is that its collection is never complete. Every mystery, whether partially solved like the sudden end of Port Royal or still fiercely debated like the origins of the Yonaguni monument, acts as a beacon. It drives exploration forward, pushing the development of new technologies from advanced sonar to deep water submersibles, all in the hope of glimpsing another piece of the puzzle. The quest to understand these places compels us to look deeper, to question our assumptions, and to refine the tools we use to listen to the whispers of the past. It is a process that reminds us that history is not a closed book, but an ongoing investigation, with its most compelling evidence often resting in the dark. So as we surface from this journey, the real invitation is to carry that sense of wonder back to the shore. Look out at the horizon and consider what other ruins, what other lost cities or forgotten monuments might lie undiscovered just beyond our sight, resting on continental shelves now flooded or hidden in the abyssal plains. The oceans have shared these 25 secrets, but they guard countless more. Stay curious about the hidden chapters of human history written beneath the waves, for in their silent depths, we do not just find the artifacts of who we were, we find clues to the enduring spirit of exploration that defines who we are.